Welcome to the Beyond Doctors Lounge podcast. This is Dr. Sandy C. coming to you today with some tips and tricks for physicians looking to transition to a non-clinical career path. Today we're going to talk about the importance of LinkedIn in your career transition. As physicians, we may not be as accustomed to being on LinkedIn, looking for connections and networking. Networking is always important no matter what industry you're in. But as physicians, I feel like we don't really use networking websites. Maybe when you're going for a clinical job, you might know someone who's already working there, who you knew from residency or medical school, who could help you get your foot in the door, or perhaps just your credentials and experience alone set you apart from the rest of the competition. But when it comes to your career pivot, you're going to definitely want to get out there, be seen, and start making genuine connections with your colleagues. So if you are a physician looking to make a career pivot, I think you would really benefit from shedding your timidity and your shyness and your hesitance about putting yourself out there and go ahead and hop in the parade. LinkedIn is as essential for physicians making a career pivot as it is for other business professionals. As you are leaving traditional clinical medicine, whether you're going to transition to a part-time non-clinical job or completely pivot your career, you're definitely going to want to connect with peers. You're going to want to go ahead and get your profile set up, and we're going to talk more about that later, and let yourself be seen. LinkedIn is the go-to platform for industries. If you want to get into pharma, if you want to get into utilization review, if you want to be a physician advisor, if you want to connect with businesses for a possible consulting role, they're on LinkedIn. So you should be where they are. Pivot to. You're going to want to build authentic connections on LinkedIn with people in the industry that you think you want to pivot to. It's also a great place to look at the career paths of your other colleagues who have already made this pivot. It's really interesting to look down their work experience and see what kind of jobs led them to their current position. Many times they didn't necessarily go from clinical medicine to their dream non-clinical job. For a lot of them, there were many stops along the way. So I think it's really great to get on LinkedIn, connect with people, and look at their individual journeys so that you can get a little bit of an idea of what it might be like making that transition. Also, being on LinkedIn makes you visible to recruiters. And honestly, that's how I got my first non-clinical position. I was contacted by a recruiter after speaking to a colleague at the company where I worked. So gain visibility, put yourself out there, engage in the industry, engage with your peers and colleagues. Let's talk about setting up an optimized LinkedIn profile for your career transition. I want to bring your attention to a few of the features that will be on your LinkedIn page. The good thing about LinkedIn is that your page can be customized and you can consider it a free career landing page. Let's start by talking about your headline. One thing you might not have noticed on LinkedIn is that everyone has a headline with a certain amount of characters that allow you to put out into the world a quick description of who you are and perhaps what you're looking for. When you interact with colleagues, when you send connection requests, when you engage under comment sections, they're going to see your picture, which we'll get more into in a bit, and they're going to see a quick headline underneath your picture. So really give this some thought. You can even use AI to help you to come up with an optimal headline for your purposes. For instance, if you're an internist, maybe you want your headline to say something like internal medicine physician, transitioning to medical affairs, clinical research enthusiast, whatever you want it to say. If you're between jobs or if you've already given your notice, you definitely have a lot more wiggle room as far as what you do with this headline, because you're not going to have to be as shy about putting your intentions out there. But don't worry, if you're still working in a job, there are still ways to make yourself visible without sending up red flags to your current employer. The next thing I want to bring your attention to is the About section. Your About section may look a little different during your career pivot. You want to bring attention, obviously, to your years of experience, your transferable skills, which we'll talk a little bit more in depth about later. And you want to also mention something about your career pivot or desired industry if you feel comfortable with that, depending on your situation. The next section we're going to discuss is the experience and skills section. This is pretty straightforward, but there are a few things you should know. Of course, grab your updated CV or resume. Go ahead and just start entering each job, all of your experiences. But the key here is that you want to make sure you are displaying the transferable skills that you've obtained from your clinical work and show the world without having to think too hard how these skills could be useful. You want to make it easy for people coming to your profile to see how your clinical skills could be transferable, useful, and beneficial in a non-clinical role. At this point in your journey, you might still be figuring out exactly how your skills as a clinician could be helpful in a non-clinical role. I recommend the use of AI. You can put in prompts that will help ChatGPT or whatever AI tool you're using to take your clinical experience and extract from that skills that could be useful in the non-clinical role that you're interested in. Add keywords, and this is another little tip. Find some job descriptions on LinkedIn that you think might be of interest in the industry you want to pivot to, and pull out some of the keywords from those job descriptions. Better yet, cut and paste those job descriptions into ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT to pull out from that job description the skills that would be helpful for you to put into your experience and skills section. Do not ignore the skills section when you're filling out your LinkedIn profile. This is what's going to help recruiters find you in the big sea of people that they're sifting through and the increasing pool of doctors who are looking for non-clinical roles. The other thing I want to mention is the photo. When you go on LinkedIn, you will see that basically everyone has their own photo. This photo is important because when you communicate with people, this photo is what they're going to see. When you comment under the post of other colleagues, they're going to see this headshot. So, hey, you're a physician. Go ahead and go to a photo studio. It doesn't have to be anything expensive. Go ahead and get some professional headshots taken. You don't even have to have them doctor them up. You can even do that on your own if you want. It doesn't have to be expensive, but I really do recommend a professional headshot. First of all, I think it helps you to get in the frame of mind that this is actually real and you are really pursuing this pivot and you are investing in yourself. That's one thing I did. I went for a photo shoot at a very inexpensive photo studio nearby, and most of the photos were terrible. I only got maybe 3 or 4 pictures that I could actually use, but it was cheap and I was able to do it on a whim. And now I have professional headshots, that are good for at least a good year and a half. Make sure your pictures are current, because when you're getting on Zooms, video interviews, you don't want to shock the person on the other end because you look totally different. You don't want to be blonde in your headshot and a brunette during the interview. So go ahead and just make sure those pictures are current. If you must, you can take a picture, at home with your camera if you're good at that. But I really like the idea of treating yourself to some corporate headshot. Next, you want to make sure you pay attention to your custom URL. Remember, like I said, your LinkedIn profile is going to almost be your career landing page for your career pivot. So you are able to customize the URL for your profile. For instance, I initially used .sandyc. I ended up changing it later, but that was my initial URL, and it corresponded with an email. So put some thought into this. Make sure it's not just LinkedIn/n/123abc. Make it something that represents you and the way you want to represent yourself during this transition. And if you're open to people contacting you, maybe also get an email with a similar handle so that you are really creating a brand for yourself during this career pivot. The next tip is, once you get on LinkedIn and once you've optimized your profile, you're going to want to make sure you're engaging and connecting. Find peers who are in a career pivot. Find people who are maybe in the hiring department of the companies that you're looking at. Go ahead, just put yourself out there. I'm not going to get into details as far as the etiquette of this. There's a lot of content on YouTube that will go more in depth on this. We'll do a little bit of homework as to what the custom is as far as the interaction. But definitely start connecting with colleagues who have already transitioned, people who are in the companies that you're interested in, and even colleagues that you know from school and from work, because you never know. Maybe unbeknownst to you, they've already gone through a career pivot. As in my situation, when I stumbled on the profile of my colleague from my previous hospital, I had no idea that she had already pivoted, and she was able to really help me. So definitely just broaden your network, broaden your connections, and don't click follow. Send a connection request, because if you just click follow, then you're just watching them, but there's no way really for you to interact. So what I would recommend is send your connection request while you're on a desktop, and when you hit connection request, send a little note with it. Don't just hit connection request. Send them a little note, maybe mention your interest in the industry that they're in, just a quick few lines, and just be authentic. I find that people are very open to connecting and networking on LinkedIn. It's not Facebook or Instagram. It's really a different kind of environment. People are on there to network. So if you come across in an authentic way, genuine and professional, I think you'll have no problem connecting. Also, one way to network on LinkedIn is to join groups. Now, one thing I found in the physician arena that there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of active physician groups. There are some, but a lot of them aren't incredibly active. But go ahead and sign up. Get in the groups and engage when there are posts. Definitely engage with them. Because remember, every time you leave a comment, every time you engage, you're putting your picture and your headline as well as your thoughts and your intellectual property in front of people. You're interacting with them and you're letting the world know that you exist and you have something to contribute. Hi, I hope that you're enjoying this video so far. I want to encourage you to take a look at the description below. There's going to be a link that will take you to a place where you can get handouts, tips, and tricks, and I'll be building this library over time. It's really great to have just some of these things in actual written format so that you don't have to take notes, because you might be driving, you might be fixing dinner for your family. So go ahead and go to that link below and take advantage of the printables and the library of materials that I'm going to be building up. Thanks again for listening. One bonus tip: if you're into content creation, you can create content on LinkedIn. Now that would be a whole different episode, and honestly, that's something I really haven't gotten into myself. But there are a lot of people who do create content, and that's another way to be noticed by colleagues, by companies, and it's another way to just empower yourself to take control of your career and put your thoughts, opinions, and viewpoints out into the world to be heard. So if you're creative, if you like to do videos, reels, if you like to write, go ahead and put some content out there on LinkedIn. Go for it. Let me know how it worked out. I want to do the same one day. Thanks for tuning in. I hope that you found some of these tips helpful, actionable, and kind of a platform for you to go ahead and bounce off of and get going in your journey. Remember, this is all about action. And one thing that's important when we're taking action is community, being around like-minded people. So I recommend finding a group, finding your tribe. If you're a women physician in particular looking to pursue a non-clinical career pivot, whether part-time or full-time, I would invite you to join us on Facebook in our group, Beyond the Doctor's Lounge, Non-Clinical Careers for Women Physicians. I started this group with some dear colleagues from my last workplace who are also my closest friends, and this is something that we're doing to just help enrich the lives of other women physicians. So you are welcome. If you're a woman doctor looking for a community, you're welcome to join us. Also, go ahead and look at the links below, and there will be some handouts, just some quick little printables and Google Docs just to help you along your way. I'll be growing that library over time, and the link below will lead you to the library of printables and tips and tricks that I build up over time. Thank you so much for joining, and I hope to see you on the next episode. Please start the conversation below. If you have any further questions that you have for me,